Hi, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Cindy Callisto, and I've been asked to answer some questions about a leadership challenge that I've had. For us, we first noticed that one of the big staffing challenges we were going to face was occurring back in the summer of 2017. We could foresee the folks who were leaving, as the military always has a PCS cycle. And in the same regards, we could see who was not going to be replaced. So we already knew that we were going to be a little tight on staff, as seems to be in most military units at some point in time. But what threw an extra wrench into the situation was that we had 2 GS employees, both physicians, who at the same time decided that they were going to take jobs elsewhere. Being that the location is not super kind to providers, primary care tends to be lesser paid in New Mexico. They tend to have to take care of a larger expansive population, very rural areas. So there's not a lot of physicians that are in surplus in Albuquerque to draw from. So waiting on potentially a relocation or somewhere elsewhere in the country that we could kind of pull from, hoping that maybe we could get a spouse that was going to be wanting to take that GS position, but really we had no we had no anticipated grasp on that position, either position. So we had to work pretty fast in order to make up for some lost time. The summer pressed on. We were pretty busy. We were going as fast as we could. We had to meet all the certain metrics and timelines that the Air Force needs, that medical needs. Things like you have to close your notes out in a certain period of time. You have to be able to answer telephone questions in a certain period of time. You have to be able to do medical readiness reviews. And we knew that we had to do that, and we were able to hunker down. The permanent party, there were 3.5 of us. So 4 persons, since I was flight commander and dual hatted, I was 50% patient care. So in terms of who sees patients, we're really 3.5 providers. And we had to see a full onslaught of patients. There aren't less patients when you run out of providers. So knowing that we were going into that was probably the best thing to get us started and keep us going. Just knowing that there was hopefully a short-term goal to all this, or a solution to all this. It was going to be a long short-term, but there was an end point. And so when you have an end point, you feel like you can kind of do anything. It's like, this marathon's going to be really hard, but it's going to end in 26 miles. And so if you can just make it through, we were able to do that. He knew the hardest part was filling that civilian position, the GS position, and we had a bite on it. We had somebody who was going to come and they were going to fill that position. They had previously worked a GS position and then had gone to the Indian Health Service, so government to government, and they were coming back, and there ended up being some pretty big roadblocks in the middle of all that, the hiring process. The commander came down, was trying to keep us apprised of it, saying it's gonna happen, but every time it didn't happen, you wait a whole nother pay period. So every time some landmark got missed, it was another 2 weeks out. And there was a point where he came down and was talking to me and my medical director about it, and just saddened. He didn't have any words to say what he was feeling. He was just really sad about all this. And so he when he told us about everything, basically we just started laughing, and that's when I knew that pretty much we had been tapped out. I think that's when I knew our resilience was really being tried. We'd already been working 14-hour days. We'd been coming on weekends. We'd been missing out on time with our friends and our family. Really just telling everybody that it's got a light at the end of the tunnel, and then that light started to dim, and that's when I knew that really the burnout was starting. At this point, all I could do was try to motivate my people to keep going. We had to devise ways to improve the distribution of work, basically. The work-life balance was gonna suffer still, but the kind of trickle down of additional workload was difficult on everyone. So we had to sit down and look at what could be done by other folks, things that those other units just weren't thinking about because they weren't stuck in the grind of it, and how we could push it outwards there. So my subordinates had to sit down and think about each one of their jobs and write down the things that they didn't necessarily need to do. So a lot with nurses, doing a lot of telephone, telehealth kind of things for like referral questions or referral issues. Then we decided to change the standards of practice, the booking protocols from the appointment line. So if somebody called and they had a referral question, we could just punt that directly to the referral management department instead of having to burden our nurses with it. The technicians started looking at some of the things that they were doing, one of which is the annual PHA, and they were doing the record reviews. This day and age, it doesn't happen within primary care, but a couple years ago it did. And so that was kind of when we first pushed to have those folks do all the record reviews as well. If people were on board with what we needed to do, obviously they were able to lay out all the different things that we could reach out for help with, and none of that could have happened without the leadership from above. So taking those proposals, saying this is what really we need to push out to the other units, the other flights. We really needed a team effort to be put on board with all of this, and the bottom line was it would give us more access to care. Patients could get more appointments. We'd have more time to spend with them. It was safer care. It was less burdensome, and ultimately it helped a little bit with the burnout of the staff. And by proposing it that way, by presenting it that way, by having our essentially our ducks in a row to say, if you can get X, Y, and Z done from another unit, that will allow us to do A, B, and C. And ultimately, A, B, and C always led to better, safer, more patient-focused care. And so that's the bottom line in the med group. If you can speak to the bottom line in the med group, you can speak to everybody helping you out. And everybody seemed very willing to do that. As a flight commander, being able to work with other flight commanders is pretty key. You might not be in the same squadron, but you're still a flight commander. And you all might be different ranks because everybody has a different structure to their system. But having that respect of each other, that I'm a flight commander, you're a flight commander, we both have missions that we need to get done. Some are having bigger struggles than others. When it came down to it, the following summer, the referral management folks really, they were facing the same staffing crunch that we had. They were working on bare bones, and they were so helpful to us when we really fell on bad times that it was easy to repay the favor and for us to go above and beyond and do what we needed to do to help them out. And just remembering that you have that system in place where you can just reach out to each other and really just say, this is the real deal, this is what we got, let me tell it to you. But what my squadron commander always told me was really the numbers help the most. So if you can give me data, that you can show me this is what you do and this is how much time it takes, or this is the impact that it has, and by not being able to do things a certain way, that metric, that data gets changed, then that's what you can really work off of, because that's the stuff that can't be altered. Data's data, and you can't just say I feel this way or I think this way. But if you can show data, that's always the best. And that's what we did, and I think everybody ultimately came around to respect that, and we ended up doing a job share in the end of it. Multiple other flights, other units have encountered these short staffing periods of time, and it's going to be expected, but I think if you can show the ways that you can get around it and other people can reach out and garner those same resources, that's the most helpful. Like I said, the other flights, they were super helpful to us, and then we ended up being more helpful to them when the time came, because, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, essentially. Not gonna say it hurt at all, but I did win the MHS Nurse of the Year. So ultimately it's a career award, but the fact that we made it through that summer was really the impetus for my commander to put me in for that award. And it's a leadership excellence award, and he thought that the way we made it through was enough to actually put it up for the award. Once you go through your whole career, you put in all the details from all those previous years that had nothing to do with this summer, and winning it was pretty amazing. There was a lot of notoriety, there was a lot of actual fame for it. We had news stations that came out to say that this was the unit that supported the person who won. The fact that it wasn't just about me winning that award, but that it came out that this was the unit who had the person that won. That was way more meaningful for the med group in general. The notoriety that everybody kind of refers to the Family Health Clinic of 17, that's pretty cool too, that we can kind of lead the way, we can be an example, that we can set the stage for the other units to succeed. That was is definitely a way to congratulate, to award, to reward the people that had to go through the suck, basically. Knowing that other people are using us as an example for what to follow, that's pretty awesome too. And being able to kind of help those units through in my couple of years since this event happened, that's been great. And hoping that it just continues on and everybody continues to pay it forward.